unit was on linear, right? So the first thing we're going to go over is linear equations. We know that the slope formula is right here. Do you guys see that? Right here, slope formula. Do y'all see that? Do you guys see how it says m equals? Do y'all see that? Do you see how there's an m right here? They're literally telling you, in case you forget slope-intercept form, that the m is a slope, and it's what's next to x. Do you see how they tell you that right here? They give you this. You get this for the whole text. They're literally telling you, hey, here's m, and m is your slope formula right there. God bless you. What they don't tell you is how to label your points. How do we label our points? What goes first? X1, then what? Y1, and then what? X2, Y2. Okay. So it's X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So make sure to write that down on your blue sheet. Because if you don't label correctly, then you're not going to be able to get the right slope. So when we label, remember that it's X1, Y1, X2, Y2. This is like nothing new, so you're putting that right on your blue sheet. So these are like little tips to put on. You can't use this blue sheet like the one you wrote on, but they give you a new one as soon as you enter the test. I would say as soon as you get your formula sheet, you write the things down that you want to remember. See how rate of change is right next to it? Right next to slope, do you guys see that? They're besties. Why are they besties? Why is rate of change and slope next to each other? Why are they besties? It's the same thing. Thank you, Kamari. Rate of change and slope are the same thing. So they're going to use rate of change, which is ROC, and slope. They mean the same thing. So you have to remember, like, they might use them interchangeably. If they ask for rate of change, they're talking about your slope. So the change in y divided by the change in x, they even tell you what it means, right? So this is on your formula sheet. What type of equations have a constant rate of change? We learned this last unit. What type have a constant rate of change? Is it quadratic, linear, or exponential? Not quadratic. Linear. Remember, no matter where it is, my slope in my equation is always my rate of change. So constant is not your slope. It is your slope, but constant rate of change is linear. That means variable rate of change is exponential and quadratic. That's because it changes depending on the intervals. So this all goes to rate of change. So rate of change is your slope. So no matter what, if you're looking at a linear and they're saying what's the rate of change between these 2 points, you know they're talking about your slope. If it's talking about one of these two, you know that it could change depending on which interval they're asking for. And so what I had students do last year, the night before the test, I'm not having you sit there and go over 58 pages of what we already went over. I want you to sit there and look at this formula sheet and remember what goes with what. So if you do get stuck, you know what to do. Cool. So we talked about how m goes with m right there. That's why there's an m right here. Point slope formula cross out. We did not learn that. That is not in our curriculum. It's not in our standards. They're just putting that there. So cross that out so you know not to look at it. What does your b represent? In y equals mx plus b, what's your b? Your y-intercept. So put little notes right here, your y-intercept. Remember, begins. When we're reading word problems, when something begins, it's your y-intercept. It's also when your x is 0. So remember, it's like, oh, why can I never remember that? So if you're looking at a table, wherever your x is 0 is your y-intercept. Cool. Standard form, remember, is when x and y are on the same side. That's going to be more important for next class, for third period, for systems. But we're also going to be looking at arithmetic. Remember the sequences? They are on your milestone a lot. So you need to make sure they give you the formulas. You need to make sure you understand them. I just remember every single year my students come back and when they've taken the milestone in the past and they're like, hey, there were so many sequences. What does arithmetic sequences mean? What's arithmetic?
Sorry, I can't.
No, Siri, I don't want you to answer. I want you guys to answer. What's arithmetic? Adding and subtracting, which is the same thing as linear. See how they're one on top of the other? That's why they're besties. They are the same thing. So linear arithmetic, if they ask you for arithmetic sequence, they're talking about a linear equation. That's why they're on top of one another, right there. Sequences just means it's a list of numbers. Now, we know recursive is like this, but the only thing that we fill in for a recursive is the D for this first one. What does D mean? What does D mean in arithmetic sequences? Do you remember? In a little while. Not multiplying. He said it's arithmetic is adding and subtracting over and over again. So D would be the number that it's adding and subtracting over and over again. What is that the same as up here? The N. The N and the D are the same thing. The D is basically your slope. It's what's being added over or subtracted over and over. They're the same thing. So D and M, they're the same thing. That's why I'm having you draw these little connections on your paper, because I want you to see if you get stuck. Like, literally, you should be writing that down as soon as you get it, because you can go, okay, I know it, I'm doing it. So recursive is, remember, just like the rule. This a to the n minus 1 just means take the term before and add or subtract whatever the pattern is. Thank you. This one right here is talking about A1. What's A1 mean? Here you go. Anyone know what A1 is? It's a number term. What number term do you think it is? It's A1. Is it my fifth term? What number term do you think it is? Y'all, wake up. It's your first term. That doesn't mean it's not your y-intercept. It's when your x equals 1. It's your first term. It is not the same as your y-intercept because that's when your x equals 0. So your first term is when x equals 1. Don't confuse the two. This n right here just means your number term. So remember, if they're asking for the 1000th term, that's where I plug it in right here. So this is my number term. Does that make sense? So that's the section that we're looking at today. That's it. So we're going to add on as we go through tomorrow, as we go through exponential and quadratic. But for right now, I want you to see like how much is on your formula sheet, how many clues are on there. Now let's go to the problems that you did for homework. So this one said the first term in arithmetic sequence. What does arithmetic mean? Adding, subtracting, it's a linear equation. So I know when I see those words arithmetic, right? I know that arithmetic means it's going to be linear. So I should look and zone in on my formula sheet to where it says arithmetic. Then I say the first term is 5. The fourth term is -4. The 10th term is -22. What's the answer here? What was the answer? This is from your homework. This is why I have you do the homework, so you can see, okay, what do I know? What do I not know? Y'all, I need you to wake up a little bit. What was the answer? If you don't know the answer, you didn't know how to do it, say that. How many people need help and want me to walk you through it? Cool. So the first thing you would do is when they're giving you term numbers, I'm writing it as a table, X and Y. And so it says the first term, so what would I put right here? First term, what number would I put? 1. The first term is 5. The fourth term is -4. The 10th term is -22. Now, there's a lot of different things I could do. I could use my answer choices and put them into table in your calculator and figure out which one gives you a table that looks with those numbers. You also learned how to do line of best fit on your calculator, where you type your x's into L1 and your y's into L2. Remember that in the lowercase a and b? I mean, you should remember we did it like last week, where you get a equals and b equals. You could also do it that way, where you type it right into your calculator and get your line of best fit. We only can do that when it's an arithmetic or a linear equation. I also can sit here and figure out my slope and my y-intercept. I can figure out, okay, let me write them as points and find my slope, and then work backwards to find my y-intercept. There's like 15,000 different ways to do each question. They don't care how you do it. They want you to just get the answer. So I'm going to give you a minute to figure out which way you want to choose and practice it. Because y'all, like, I can't like take the information I'm saying out of my mouth and like put it in your brain. But the number one thing you can do is focus. Like, take those headphones out, put your phone in your backpack, and like focus. Because like, I've taught you everything you need to know. I've done everything I could. I've done small groups. I need you guys to meet me halfway and at least A, do the homework that you need to do, and 2, I need you to like focus when I'm going over it. Because it's just not going to pour into your brain all of a sudden. Like, I want you to get to that test on Tuesday and feel confident like that you got this. And you're not going to feel confident if you're not focusing on like what the type of questions are. So I'll give you a minute. Figure out which way you want to do. There was 15 different ways you can do this problem. Figure out which way you want to do, and figure out what's the right answer. All right, cool. So this answer did end up being C. I can even take this and be like, okay, let me plug in 4 for each of these and actually get -4 as my answer. There might be more than one that works, so you need to try a couple different points. But I can even take each of these and plug them in. So like, even right here, -1. Does that equal 5? No. 1 plus 4, does that equal 5? Yeah, so that could be 1, but let's try this one. What 4 plus 4, does that equal -4? No. It could be that easy. Y'all just need to figure out like all the methods that we learned. Don't use all of them, but choose one of them. Cool. Next one was this. This was 1. This is from your homework. Does anyone need me to go over this? Or first, what was the answer? C was the answer. Anyone need me to go over? Okay. So all you're doing, first of all, decreasing. What does that mean about your y's? Are they going up or down? Down, right? So this one's going from 0 to 8 to 15. Is that going down? No. 5 to 6, is that going down? 64, these are going down. So the next thing you would need to figure out is which are going down at this, subtracting at the same rate. So like if we're going to 51 to 42 to 33, those are all subtracting by 9. So it's an even amount each time, so that's why my answer would be C. 64 to 60 is subtracting at different rates. So 64 to 60 is subtracting by 4, and then to 52 is by 8. So it's not the same each time. That's why this one would be, because it's linear. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, next one. What's the answer here?
A.
It is A. Anyone need me to go over? So it tells us in the problem, it says Sheila has 4 employees. So we see a 4 in this equation. What does the 4 stand for? What did I just underline? Sheila has 4 employees, so that's what the 4 stands for right here. And she pays each of them a daily rate. So what does that mean that 75 is? The daily rate. So this would be the amount of money she pays her employees each day. That's my answer. So it's just about reading and interpreting the problem. It's pretty easy. Y'all just need to like take your time and figure out what they're asking for. Cool. This one, what was the answer? Number 30.
C.
Yep. No, it's not C.
D.
Which one?
I put D.
What is it? B. It's B. What are the different ways I can do this? First off, I could do it by hand. I could figure out the slope and the y-intercept and work backwards. You also have a table in your function in your calculator called a table, where you could type each of these in, figure out which one gives you that table. You also have data where you can type in this for L1 and that for L2 and figure out which one is your A and B. There's so many different ways and cheat sheets to do each problem. Y'all just need to practice it. That's the main thing, practicing, because none of these cheat sheets matter if you don't know how to do them or when to use them. So you know when you're given a table and you're given a bunch of equations, I can type each of them into a table and figure out which one gives me that table. Cool. This one, what was the answer? Y'all, I understand this isn't, there's no way, exciting and fun way to review an entire year in a week. Like, I know it's not the most exciting thing right now, but it's really, like, I would put your phones away, like, this is what's gonna help you. And like, I'm asking you to like, put in effort until Tuesday afternoon, and then it will be smooth sailing from there. But like what you put into this, if you're not doing your homework and you're not taking it seriously and you're not seeing what you did wrong, there's really, like, it's not gonna help you. So please make sure you guys do your homework, especially the practice test that's due on Monday. Did you get this answer? Did anyone get it? Do you need me to go over it? So when something's in a number or in a parentheses, remember that just means I put the number in the parentheses. So instead of x in this equation, what do they want you to put in for x? 7. That's it. What's 2 times 7? Minus 1. That was your answer.
Oh,
You can put it into table. You put it into table, and so when x is 7, you would get the same answer. What if it said it like this, f of x equals 7? Where would I plug 7 in this time? This is my equation. Where would I plug 7 into? F of x. Do you guys see the difference between this right here and this? This is saying plug it in for this whole thing. So I would plug 7 in right here. So you can either solve, which I would just do a 2-step equation, or what Tyreek did is he typed the equation into his calculator and he can scroll until his y is set. But you should get the same answer. How do I get 1 to the other side? Add 1. And you get 8 equals 2x. Then what do you do? Divide. What do you get? You're going to be getting 4. So if he were to scroll on this table till 4, he would see that x, y. Do you get the difference? I would write that down maybe on your blue sheet if that's something you want to look over. If something's in the parentheses, it means plug it in for x. So it says instead of x, you plug in this. And when it's written like that, we plug it in for f of x. So that's something to write down because there are going to be quite a few of those. All right, cool. Next one. This question asked what the domain was. How many people need me to go over it? No one? You all got the answer? Mm-hmm. The answer choices on your paper were these, or on your quizzes, were integers,
Yeah.
all real numbers, whole numbers, or rational. That was the answer choices. Which one is your right answer for that? Do y'all need me to go over it? Okay. So, what does domain mean? What letter? X, right? So first of all, I need to identify that. Domain means my X. When if they just gave you the equation y equals 5,000 plus 1.3x and gave you no word problem, no context, the domain is always all real numbers, negative infinity to infinity. But when it's a word problem, it's different because it's saying the number of manufactured items is X. They tell you that. So I need to go, okay, which ones can be the number of manufactured items? Integers includes negative and positive whole numbers. Can I get negative manufactured items? Does that make sense? No, so I can't have integers. All real numbers includes rational and irrational. Can I get square root of 3 of a manufactured item? No. Whole numbers, remember that this is like the 0 in whole numbers. It's just 0, 1, 2, 3. Can I get that many manufactured products? Yes. And then rational numbers can be decimals or fractions. Can I get 2.75 manufactured items? No. So your answer would be whole numbers. It also can look like non-negative integers. That means the same thing. So if it's positive or non-negative integers, those are whole numbers. We did not go over this lesson because of time, but it will be on your milestone. You did go over at least your first semester of Algebra 1 from last semester. So you want to make sure this would probably be something to write down because you haven't seen this in a while. We didn't have time to really go over this in depth. Does this make sense, though? Next one says, what is the cost of 2,000 items? So it's items. In this case, I can see that items are my x's. So all I have to do is instead of x, what am I going to plug in? 2,000. Or you can, I mean, you would have to scroll 2,000 times, so I won't do that. But all you're doing is putting 2,000 in for x. You're identifying, hey, items needs your x in this problem, so I'm going to plug it in for x and solve. For this one, it must be below $10,000. So I know that C right here, this is the cost. So I know I'm going to be plugging it in for that one right there. So it'll look like this, 10,000. And I want to spend less than that. So if I have this as my equation, and I want to spend less, I know that less than looks like that word. It's the booty, remember, it's pointed towards X, that means less than. And then you solve. For which one? You don't need to put that. You just type it right in. For 5,000 plus 1.3. You just put it right in your calculator. So, did you guys get the first answer? Just typing it right into your calculator. Anyone get the answer? I'm waiting. Cool. Do you guys need me to go over this one? Remember where we draw our river? We actually went over it yesterday. You would subtract 5,000 on both sides like this. And you'd end up getting 5,000, 1.3x. Then how do I get x by itself? How do you get x by itself here? Divide by 1.3. What answer do you end up getting? Can you say it louder? 38.6. Okay, 38.6. So when I'm looking at this, right, I need less, I'm my nearest whole item. I need less than that. So see how this would normally round up to 39? Because I need less than that, I can't have 0.6 of a manufactured item, so your answer would be 38. Because it has to be less than that. If it was equals to, then I would round up. But because they're telling me it has to be less than $10,000, I have to round down in that case. So my answer would be 38. Cool. All right, next one. What was this answer? Who has a guess to what the answer is? Let's see. Do y'all need me to go over this? First, we look at the snowflakes. How many snowflakes are in the first one? Over here. 6. How many snowflakes are in the next one? 9. How many are in the next one? How many? 12. So that's my sequence. When I'm looking at it from 6 to 9 to 12, what's the pattern? Is it not times 3, adding 3, right? Because 6 plus 3 is 9, 9 plus 3 is 12. So I know that I'm adding 3 over and over again, which is my slope or my difference, right? I can see that looking at the answer choices, they're all in recursive form. I also know it's arithmetic because I'm adding over and over again. So what I would do is I would go, okay, I know it's arithmetic, I know it's recursive. I'm going to go back to my formula sheet right here that we just went over. And I'm going to go, okay, I know it's arithmetic, I know it's recursive because you get this formula sheet. I know the only thing I need to fill in is my d, which is your slope. So what was the d in that problem? 3. So which one just has to get the next term? I take the term before and add 3. Do you guys see how easy this is if you understand how to utilize your formulas? Cool. Does anyone have any questions about this? All right, this one says, what was the y-intercept? What's the y-intercept here? What is it? What's my y-intercept? You should be able to look at the table or the equation. Anyone get the y-intercept?
Oh,
28,000, right? It's when your x is 0. Oh, why can I never remember my y-intercept? So that first one, where's the y-intercept? 0, 28,000. You didn't need to graph it. It represents your initial value of the car. Does the graph have an x-intercept? How do I know when I'm looking at my table where my x-intercept is? If my y-intercept is when x is 0, when y is 0. So you can either keep subtracting until I get 0 right here, or you can type this into table and search and keep going down until your y is 0. Or sorry, your x, yeah, your y is 0. I want you to find when what is your x value when you type it into table. Or you can keep subtracting by 1750 because I know that's my slope until I get to 0. How many times do I need to do? Anyone find it yet? Victor, can you explain how you found that? You typed the equation right there into the table, and you just kept scrolling until his y was 0. And at 16, you should see that your y is 0. So my x-intercept is 16 comma 0. That represents in 16 years, the car will be worth $0. Is this function increasing or decreasing? Decreasing. It's going down in value. Cool. Right, this is the last one. Did anyone get the answer for this one? No, I need you to like wake up or start doing your homework. What does domain mean? X. Which ones of these don't even have an X in it? Cross them out, right? I have a 50-50 shot at getting this right. That's how I want you to take tests. Okay, I know domain's the X. I know it can have Y in the answer if it's asking for the domain. So I got a 50-50 shot at getting this right, right? Your chances just went from 25 to 50. Then I see, okay, what does X mean? It tells me. X is the amount of time in hours. So if they're talking about this horse, and they're saying the horse runs at a rate of 8 miles per hour, and it runs a total of 6 hours. What's the smallest amount of hours, because that's what it tells me X is. What's the smallest amount of hours this horse runs? So what's the smallest amount if the horse didn't even start? 0. How many hours is this horse running for? Yes. If we were talking about 48, that would be your range. So D is your range. Because I would go, okay, it's 8 miles per hour, and I know Y represents my distance. So if the horse goes at a total of 48 hours. But that's not what they want. Do you see how they come up with those answer choices strategically? There's people's jobs to sit there, and they get paid more than I do, sit there and figure out, okay, what's every mistake that every student can make, and we're going to put them as answer choices. So be careful. Even if you get the answer choice, triple check your work. All right, cool. So this is your extra credit practice. I'm going to put that up in a second, but your homework was systems. We are going to systems next class. We don't have time to move backwards. So I want you guys, if you guys are good with linear, then cool, but it doesn't seem like you guys are that good with linear, so I would make sure to practice. This is your systems. This was the homework. So you want to make sure, A, you put it into quizzes, and these are the problems. So remember that, like, when you're doing your homework, I put the problems in your quizzes so that you can work out your work and you can say, hey, like, I don't understand how I got the wrong answer. Like, that's the point of the homework, right? It's not for me to be like a mean teacher and give you all this homework. It's because, like, you have this big test coming up and I can't cover the entire year of work by myself. You guys have to meet me halfway. So that is the homework. If you're good with linear and you understood it and you're focused, go ahead and do your homework because that was due last night, but I'll give you time to do it right now. Beautiful. But star those homework questions, the extra credit questions, and you can always do the extra credit questions at home too. So if you're like, oh hey, I've been slacking, I'm gonna do some of the extra credit. These are the extra credit questions. You don't have to do all of them, but if you're like, hey, I definitely need help with like tables or characteristics or domain and range or the functions, those are the ones I would focus on. So if you want to go through, I want you to write EC3 next to each one of these problems because those are your extra credit for that unit. Just so you know, like after the milestone, there really aren't that many grades. Like we're gonna have like a pretty chill project that's like not gonna be too intense. And there's not going to be like many opportunities for extra credit because the point of this extra credit is to make sure you're overly prepared for the milestone. So once the milestone is over, there really isn't this incentive for us to give like extra credit. So you want to make sure you're taking advantage of these opportunities. So you're writing EC3 down on each one. You're writing EC3 down on each one.